Okay, consider a right triangle. There's my right triangle with a side of length x that is opposite angle a side of length y that is opposite angle B, and a hypotenuse of length z that is opposite the right angle. Okay, so this is the right angle here, and this is the side opposite that. So that is z. And then we've got two other angles. One of them's A and one of them's B. So going with angle A in the green. Here's angle A. So the side opposite it would be this side over here, and that is X. And then B, which is this angle, the side opposite of that would be this one over here, and that one is labeled Y. Okay, so I don't know why this is not highlighting very well, but it's not. Okay, now they tell me if the sine of B is, go with blue. They tell me if the sine of B is 1 over the square root of 3. Okay. We also know that the sine of B, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And when I'm looking at this, if you look at the yellow angle, that's B. We're looking at the yellow angle, sine of B. The opposite of B is the Y. This is Y. And the hypotenuse is Z. So if the sine of B equals this, but the sine of B also equals this, then I can set those two things equal to each other. And that's a proportion, which means the cross products are equal to each other. So if I multiply 1 times z, that gives me z, and y times the square root of 3 would be y times the square root of 3. Now that gives me something that represents z. Z would equal whatever y is times the square root of 3. I just need to figure out y. Now the only other information that they give me is they tell me that side x has a value of 6. But this is also a right triangle. And in right triangle, you can use the Pythagorean theorem that says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Or in this case, x squared plus y squared equals the z squared. The c is always your hypotenuse, and the a and the b are your legs. And I know x is 6. I do not know y, but I do know that z is a y times the square root of 3 squared. 6 squared is 36. If you take a y times the square root of 3 and square it, what you're really doing is multiplying it times itself twice. So you'd be taking y times the square root of 3 times another y times the square root of 3. Let's see. When you multiply a square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that is the square root of 9. but the square root of 9 is just a 3. And if you multiply this y times that y, you get a y squared. So at this point, I have 36 plus y squared equals a 3y squared. I am going to subtract y squared on both sides so that that cancels. I've run out of room, so follow me over here. And so now I'll have 36 equals, if you have 3y squareds minus 1y squareds, you've got 2y squareds. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 so that that cancels. And 36 divided by 2 is 18, and that equals the y squared. And now if you want to figure out what y is, I am going to square root the y squared. But what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. If you square root a y squared, you're just left with y. Now, this up here says enter exact answers. They didn't tell me to round off. I'm heading to a radical of 18, which is not a perfect square. So I'm going to have to simplify my radical. The square root of 18 is the same thing as the square root of a 9 times the square root of a 2. And the square root of 9 is 3. I cannot take the square root of 2, so I just leave that. That's my answer for y. Y is going to be 3 times the square root of 2. And then z, where is it? Oh yeah, that was in pink right here. Z is going to equal whatever y is times the square root of 3. So here I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to come down here. Z is going to equal y. Y was 3 times the square root of 2. And you're going to multiply that times the square root of 3. And so what happens is this 3 here is just 3, and then the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 becomes the square root of 6, and that is a z. And I had already gone in there and put them in there. Am I on the right page? Let's see. Nope. I need number, sorry, this is number 7. And I put them in here. 3 times the square root of 2 for y, and 3 times the square root of 6 for z, and got them right.